Good afternoon, my dear students. How are you today? In this lesson, we are going to study Unit 11, Lesson 2. Yesterday, we started talking about different ways of sending messages, and we talked about how people send messages in the past and nowadays. I'd like to remind you of the educational value for this month is time management. You should save your time, you should organize it, and you should have a good plan to achieve all your goals. So please open your students book page number 85. As you can see in the picture here, there's a different way of sending messages. It's a message in a bottle or a bottle message. A message in a bottle. Okay, so this is education value, time management. And here, this is an outline for the lesson or the topic we have this month here, ways of sending messages in the past. People used drums or well-sealed bottles, messengers, men on horses, pigeons, fire and smoke. So in the past, they used different means of sending messages to communicate. Well-sealed bottles are have some advantages. They survive hurricanes. The glass lasts forever. These are two advantages. What about pigeons? They are much more quickly than people, so pigeons can fly to send messages. They always found their way home. They can easily find their whole way home, so they are very intelligent birds. They were reliable during war times, so the pigeons were used in the Second World War. They could deliver a message and return with another. This is a kind of pigeon called boomerang. Let's learn some of the new words today.
Unreliable,
Unreliable, unreliable, unreliable, untrustworthy, irresponsible. Unreliable, it's an adjective. Unreliable. Sending messages in a bottle is an unreliable means of communication. Unreliable, it's untrustworthy. It's not practical.
unreliable,
Unreliable, untrustworthy, or irresponsible. My sources are unreliable, but their information is fascinating.
starvation,
Starvation. Starvation is a noun. Starvation. Look at the picture here. Starvation, lack of food. So starvation means lack of food. Millions of people face starvation every year. Many children in Africa die because of starvation, because of lack of food or shortage of food.
Well sealed.
Well sealed. Well sealed. Well sealed means locked out. Uh, well sealed is an adjective. Closed very securely. Look at these bottles of medicine. Watch out. The kid is playing with a bottle of medicine. Is it well sealed? Is it closed very securely? Is it well locked? So well sealed.
current,
Current. We have electricity, or we can say water, or water current. So current means body of water or body of air or body of electricity moving in a definite direction. يبقى تيار مائي هوائي كهربائي أي تيار. Current. If wind and current conditions are good, a bottle can travel nearly 200 kilometers a day.
impromptu,
Impromptu is an adjective. Impromptu, it means done without being planned, organized, or rehearsed. For example, if I ask Ahmed Altras or Omar to do a presentation or oral fluency, he can present his topic impromptu, means without planning, or he is ready to talk. Impromptu, without planning. It was an impromptu speech by Mr. Ali or by Mrs. Ali, but it was liked by all. Impromptu means done without being planned or organized or rehearsed. So these are some of the new words we studied today and yesterday. Current, unreliable, ASAP, well sealed, impromptu, starvation. You've got 6 words and 6 sentences. Fill in the space with words from the list. Please read and choose the correct answer. Yes, Shadi.
They passed electric current to the machine to test it.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Shadi. Current. Okay. Amar Hamdi.
The boss ordered, I want 2 good engines down here ASAP.
Yes, ASAP means ASAP, as soon as possible. Thank you, Amar. Yes, Faris Samir.
Yes, teacher. Um, make sure that the bottles are before dis-
Before
distributing them.
distributing them. Yes.
Distributing them.
What is the right
Um,
answer?
well sealed.
Well sealed. Very good. Here in Ramadan now, we usually distribute some bottles of milk or some bottles of juice and some dates or tamr for people who are fasting. So it's a kind of a charity. So you should make sure that the bottles are well sealed. Thank you. Salim.
It's embarrassing to be asked to give improper
And
speech.
impromptu. Very good. On a certain occasion. Very good. Impromptu. Without being planned. Thank you. Muhammad Ahmed Al Hasib.
Yes. Some internet websites are
Unreliable.
unreliable. We should never trust them.
Yes, very good. So if you search the internet for information, you should make sure that these pieces of information are what are true or are not false, because some websites are unreliable. They give what false information. We shouldn't trust them. Thank you, Luay.
Millions of poor people face starvation because of shortage of food.
Very good. So we should help the people by giving them food, by giving them some money. We should show our sympathy and compassion towards these needy. Thanks a lot. Now, have you ever heard or read a strange true story? Have you ever heard or read a strange story? Tomorrow, I'm going to ask you to give me or tell me this strange story. You are going now to hear a part of a radio program called Strange Stories. Please pay attention, listen carefully to these stories and to answer the questions later. Here, you are going to hear part of a radio program called Strange Stories. Listen and answer these questions. A. How many strange stories do you hear? You are going to listen and hear some stories. How many are they? Then, what nationalities are the people in the stories? Are they Kuwaiti, Egyptian, Japanese, Indian? You mentioned the nationalities. And we do not know the nationality of one person. Which one we don't know its nationality or his nationality? So please be careful to answer these two simple questions. Ready?
Unit 11, 11.1, page 85, exercise 2.
Have you ever found a message in a bottle? Who was it written by? Why was it written? How far had it travelled before you found it? In today's edition of Strange Stories, we hear about some cases of this most unreliable means of communication. The strangest story was perhaps the case of Matsuyama, a Japanese seaman. He was shipwrecked with his crew of 44 in 1784. But before they all died of starvation on a Pacific island, Matsuyama scratched the story of their tragedy on a piece of wood, put it into a bottle, and threw it into the sea. It was washed up 150 years later, in 1935, at the seaside village where Matsuyama himself had been born. Probably the saddest letter was from a passenger on the Lusitania, which sank in the Atlantic Ocean in May 1915. The writer was calm enough to write a message and put it into a bottle as the ship was sinking. He wrote, "I'm still on deck with a few people. We are sinking fast. The end is near. Maybe this note will..." This is how the letter ended. Obviously, the writer had put it into the bottle as the ship sank. The bottle was picked up by a fisherman. Another bottle voyage lasted over 6 years. A bottle was put into the sea by German scientists in 1929 in the Indian Ocean. Inside was a message which could be read without breaking the bottle. It asked the finder to report where he found it and to throw it back into the sea. The bottle was found and thrown back several times and was eventually washed up in Western Australia in 1935. It had covered 25,000 kilometers in 2,447 days. We'll end today's program with a happy story. It's about Paulina and Ake Viking, who were married in Sicily in 1958, thanks to a bottle. 2 years earlier, Ake, a bored Swedish sailor on a ship at sea, had dropped a bottle overboard with a message asking any girl who found it to reply. Paulina's father, a fisherman, found the bottle and passed it to his daughter for a joke. Just for fun, Paulina wrote a note to the sailor. They continued writing to each other until finally Ake visited Sicily. Their wedding took place soon after their first meeting.
So, back to the questions. How many strange stories do you hear? Yes, Hasanin.
4.
4 stories. Yes, that's right. Very good. What nationalities are the people in the stories? Ultras.
Yes. The first story, Japanese. The second
Japanese.
story,
Yeah.
yes. The second story we don't know. The third story, German. In the fourth story,
Very good. And the fourth story is what?
Swedish and Italian.
Swedish and Italian. Very good. Thanks a lot. So let's check here the answer. In the first story, the nationality of the person is Japanese, and second story, we don't know his nationality, and in the third story, German, and in the fourth story, Swedish and Italian. Thanks a lot, Ahmed Altras. Okay, now we are going to answer next question. When does each story take place? When does each story take place? You have to mention the day, the time. Please listen again to practice answering question C. You have to mention the date, the time. Listen carefully.
Unit 11, 11.1, page 85, exercise 2.
Have you ever found a message in a bottle? Who was it written by? Why was it written? How far had it travelled before you found it? In today's edition of Strange Stories, we hear about some cases of this most unreliable means of communication. The strangest story was perhaps the case of Matsuyama, a Japanese seaman. He was shipwrecked with his crew of 44 in 1784. But before they all died of starvation on a Pacific island, Matsuyama scratched the story of their tragedy on a piece of wood, put it into a bottle, and threw it into the sea. It was washed up 150 years later, in 1935, at the seaside village where Matsuyama himself had been born. Probably the saddest letter was from a passenger on the Lusitania, which sank in the Atlantic Ocean in May 1915. The writer was calm enough to write a message and put it into a bottle as the ship was sinking. He wrote, "I'm still on deck with a few people. We are sinking fast. The end is near. Maybe this note will..." This is how the letter ended. Obviously, the writer had put it into the bottle as the ship sank. The bottle was picked up by a fisherman. Another bottle voyage lasted over 6 years. A bottle was put into the sea by German scientists in 1929 in the Indian Ocean. Inside was a message which could be read without breaking the bottle. It asked the finder to report where he found it and to throw it back into the sea. The bottle was found and thrown back several times and was eventually washed up in Western Australia in 1935. It had covered 25,000 kilometers in 2,447 days. We'll end today's program with a happy story. It's about Paulina and Ake Viking, who were married in Sicily in 1958, thanks to a bottle.
So when does each story take place? You have to mention the time, the date, the year. لؤي محمد.
The first story took place on 1784.
1784. Is it a year?
Yes.
So you mention in, don't say on. On with days. Okay, in. Thank you.
Okay.
Ahmed Jamal Wardani.
Teacher, the second story, 1915.
In 19. In, don't forget the preposition. Yes, in 1915. Yes, Omar Hamdi. Thank you, Ahmed.
The third story in 1929 and 1935.
So you can say the third story takes place or is in. Thank you. So here the last one, Shad Zakaria. Thank you.
The fourth story
Pause.
takes place in 1956 to 1958.
Thanks a lot. So let's check your answers here. Look at the screen. The first story takes place from 1784 to 1935. And the second story takes place in 1915. And the third story takes place from 1929 to 1935. From 2. The fourth story takes place from 1956 to 1958. Now here, which of the information in the fact file below does the radio program give you more details about? Read the fact file, then listen again. Here, let's read these fact file. دي حقائق علمية يا شباب على خصوص message in a bottle. Fact file, messages in bottles. A well-sealed bottle can survive hurricanes that can sink ships. A glass lasts forever. It is impossible to predict the direction a bottle can travel. The longest bottle voyage ever was 25,000 kilometers, a journey that took 6.5 years. If wind and current conditions are good, a bottle can travel nearly 200 kilometers a day. Which fact file does the radio program give us more details about. Faris Samir.
Yes, teacher.
Which one? 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 facts. يعني هو
I
ذكر
will
يعني ذكر واحدة من الحقائق دي في الأخبار اللي أنت سمعتها دلوقتي في الراديو بروجرام. Which one? A well-sealed bottle, or it is impossible, the longest bottle, if wind and current conditions. Which one?
I will sell the bottle.
Let's see. So the right answer, I think, it is impossible to predict the direction a bottle can will travel because it's untrustworthy. It's unreliable. It's impossible to predict the direction a bottle can travel. قال لك مستحيل انت تعرف في اي اتجاه مشت الزجاجة. Okay, now you are going to listen again. You can listen to the video or the again to answer this question about these stories. How did Matsuyama and his men die? How did they die? The right answer, they had no food. What happened to Luciana? The Luciana in May 1915. The Luciana is the name of the ship. It ended its voyage. The people who found the German scientist's bottle didn't break it. Why not? Because they could read the message through the glass. Why did Paulina reply to the sailor's message? Because it was as a joke. Okay. Here, imagine you are on a beach and you find an empty bottle. تخيل نفسك انت على الشاطئ وانت وجدت زجاجة فاضية. And then you are going to write a message. What message would you send in the bottle? ايه الرسالة اللي تكتبها وتحطها داخل الزجاجة. And where could your bottle go? تخيل you are imagining now. Where could your bottle go? البottle بتاعتك تروح في أي اتجاه. Will it go to Iraq? Would it go to Iran? Would it go to Salmiya? Would you like the finder to contact you? هل أنت عايز من الشخص المستلم الزجاجة دي to keep in touch with you, to send you a message, to call you? Why are message in a bottle storage memorable? لماذا الرسائل اللي موجودة في الزجاجات دي بتبقى so memorable ذات ذاكرة so memorable? There is a quote that says it usually takes me more than 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech. This is Mark Twain, a famous author. He imagines that or he pretends that he present a speech without planning, but really he spent about or more than 3 weeks to prepare this speech. Okay. Let's revise the new words. You can screenshot for these new words you studied today and yesterday. Study them, and then you can do the vocabulary exercise for this one. And the other one, there are some setback questions concerning messages in general, and there are some translate these things into Arabic. Thank you so much. Until we meet again, inshallah, tomorrow. Goodbye and good luck.